Hello and welcome to Tech Career Pathways with the Montana High Tech Business Alliance, an interview series to help Montanans find high-paying jobs in the high-tech industry. Today, we're discussing information technology, or IT, with two co-founders of Endpoint Utility Corp in Kalispell, David Mayer and Neil Photikarm. Welcome, David and Neil.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Hello.
And to start us off, could you tell us the story of your own careers, where you're from, your education, and your career paths up to now?
You want to go first?
I'll go first.
All right.
So, hey, good to see you again, Christina. David Mayer, I am the CEO and one of the co-founders, along with Neil and a couple others, of Endpoint Utility Corp. And so my story of IT, I think, is emblematic of a lot of people's story, which is there was no direction leading up to it until we got in it. My actual background is I was born in Iowa City, Iowa, lived around Iowa, and ultimately ended up at Illinois State University, which, if you can find that without a map, you win the award. It's in Normal, Illinois. So that'll be your word search for today. And that was where Neil and I met. And there at Illinois State, my first major was actually in music education. And then realizing I was actually told you can't sing and you can't play piano, so you should probably find a different degree. And so I did. And the other degree that I found was actually in finance. So I graduated with a degree in finance. And my first job, because I really wanted to have one after college, is I moved to Phoenix, Arizona, and I took a job teaching on things like Microsoft Windows, Microsoft Word, things like that. I really enjoyed it. I love the teaching aspect of it. I love the technology aspect of it. And at this time, a lot of people, because I am that old, were just getting their first computer at work. So it was kind of an exciting time, and it was really cool and to see all of that. And so one thing led to another. I then went to managing the training center. Then I went into selling technology for a reseller. Then I went to a services company where I did inside sales. And then I went, ultimately, I ended up, in terms of like big career moves, I got recruited over to a sales position at Microsoft. I worked my way there into middle management. And then I went over to another big reseller that was actually in Arizona called Insight. And then went through the career ladder there and ended up actually as an executive running one of their divisions, which had about 2,500 people in it. So it isn't necessarily about you start with a beginning and an end point in mind. For me, it was, I started with a general direction of something I really enjoyed and was passionate about it. And one thing led to another and led to another. And I think the biggest learning was I was always open to the next opportunity.
Yeah. So as for myself, I am from the Chicagoland area. And when I went to ISU, where I met Dave, of course, my path was in the general of the sciences. It was looking at physics as a major, and started taking some classes in computer science. And that's where I got hooked into technology. And having a father that was an electrical engineer, which is kind of like the precursor to computers in a very infantile state, it kind of made sense. So I started with a path down with applied computer science. And then after leaving ISU, getting a job in the IT world and started working there, then getting a degree in management to kind of bring it to the next level. So at first you become technical, but then you get into the field and you understand that there's more in IT than just computers. So it's also the ecosystem about working with people and becoming a manager. And that's where I ended up going, is into the management field in large corporations. And we also started looking from say from a computer software or an application focus, then into more of a hardware, laptops, desktops, mainframe focus later on in my career. So, and then you switch back and forth as you go. But that's how my education went and my passion for IT became. It always was trying to solve a bigger puzzle. It's always trying to find the new next best technology out there, and just enjoying the path that it brings you.
That's great. Thank you. What led you to make the shift from working for big companies in IT roles to launching a startup of your own?
So for me, my career has always been in large organizations, very centered around 100,000 employees. What led me here is the ability to make a bigger difference. So I don't think there's anything bad to say about working for a large organization, other than there's a lot of relationships that you have to build, and you don't always own the decision. It's always a negotiation. The transition is really, for me, about being able to build upon an existing relationship that I have with Dave, but also being able to make a bigger impact to the objective and to the goal.
David, how about you?
I mean, much the same things, right? I also worked at really large Fortune 500 companies, and it kind of came down to, as Neil indicated, you only have so much control over your own destiny. And so this was an opportunity, once you've kind of exhausted that part of your life, and I would say for anybody who's out exploring career opportunities, neither is good or bad. They are just different, right? And so there is definitely things that I learned working at very large organizations that are directly applicable to, starting up and working at a small company, and vice versa, because in the past I had worked for small companies. So I've jumped around between really big organizations and small organizations. And, I wouldn't say that I have a preference towards one or the other, but this was an opportunity where we could take everything that we learned for the past 25 plus years we've been at it, and then directly apply it to something that we really wanted to accomplish on behalf of our customers. So that was what led us down the path to get to the point where we started it.
So maybe tell us more about your company, Endpoint Utility Corp, and how it got started, what the company does, what you're engaged in right now.
So the origin story is I think quintessential Montana. So we're the four of us that are the founders. We were literally having a virtual campfire. So it was during the height of COVID. So we're all in different places. And we're on a virtual meeting around the campfire, right? And so each of us had a campfire in their own yard, but we were all like remotely distributed. So we really just got started talking, and as we were going through it, we realized that each one of us possessed a deep knowledge in kind of a different domain within the IT arena. So like, Neil's done service delivery forever. I've been in executive management. Nick has done procurement and sourcing of products. Evan has done product creation and product marketing. And so everybody had this kind of different take on the ecosystem, but all of us had the same vision. And I think that's what's important, that Endpoint Utility was created, because what we saw is that if you're a really large organization and you have 10, 100 million, heck, some of them even more than that, to throw at IT every year, you can do some really awesome stuff. But if you're a small business, you have all the same needs, but you don't have, millions of, you might not even have thousands of dollars a year, right, to throw at the problem. So how do we take the best of what we'd collectively done for really large companies and then repackage it and deliver it in a way that it is affordable and it can be consumed by a small business so that they can use technology to accomplish their business goals, get the benefit of the technology without the massive cost that gets sunk into it from large organizations. And so that was where this was born from. And then, you know, where we're at now is really onboarding more and more organizations that agree with that vision, right? That say, you know what, I have 10 employees, and you know, I could either hire a full-time IT staff, or for about a third that cost or even less, I can just hire you guys to do it, and then I'll take that money and I'll go and invest it in something that's really going to help me grow my business. So IT is a great enabler to business, but IT itself, unless you are an IT company, clearly, IT itself for a company that isn't an IT company isn't going to be what it is that truly accelerates your business, right? It's your product, it's your service, it's your retail store. Those are the things that drive the business. And we're here to help take the utility side of, thus the name, of the equation, so that customers can focus on their business and we'll focus on the guts of running the day-to-day. Anything you'd add, sir?
No, I think you did a good job summing it up. That's how we got together. Obviously, it's a great folklore. But we were friends first. And I think we built the company on a relationship of how do we solve problems together. So, and the four of us came together at a time where we are at the peak of our careers. We know our space. And we just wanted to take our knowledge and bring it together and take it to the next level and understand that we want to be customer focused first. They don't care about the nuts and bolts about how a computer works, like most people do. They don't care. They just want to turn it on and know that it's going to work. We want to make sure that that happens, right? And you don't have to understand which is the best laptop to buy or which is the best how to fix your operating system. We want to make sure that we can do that for you. And again, to achieve your objective into accomplishing your work, not fixing your computer or having to understand why doesn't my, where's the any key work? We just want to enable the customer to continue to work.
Well said.
Why did you decide to build your company and the headquarters in Kalispell, Montana?
So I live here, so that helps. But in all seriousness, we actually looked at when we were going through the company planning, we actually looked at, the four founders live in 3 different cities. So we looked at Phoenix, we looked here, we looked at the Chicago area. We actually looked at a couple of others, and what we found was that this was a great opportunity where we could work with a customer base, even though we're a national company and we work for customers all over the country. We saw there was a great opportunity for what it is that we offered to help the local community in a few different ways. One, there aren't a lot in Kalispell, at least in Flathead Valley. There are not a lot, if any, really, true managed service providers. So that's a different concept of IT. It's a little bit different bent on it, and there really aren't any here. So there was an opportunity to serve local customers and help them grow their business here locally. But more important to that is the fact that the kind of people that are necessary to make our business concept successful are the kind of people that exist here. And I say that not from a perspective of like IT education or training or anything like that, but just the people themselves. So you have to be somebody who is wanting to work, because this is not the easiest job in the world. Because you never know what the next problem is going to be, right? The next phone call is, my printer doesn't work. And then the next phone call is, I can't remember my password, and the next one and the next. So it's just all over the place, right? So you have to want to work. So hardworking is certainly deeply rooted in all the folks in Montana. You also have to be, honestly, you have to be a nice person, because when somebody calls us, they are frustrated, they're mad, it's not working. They're trying to do something at their job and they can't do it because the thing is broken, whatever the thing is. And so you have to be calm and you have to be kind and you have to be empathetic and you have to be all of those things. And we saw that deeply in the personality of here. And not to say that other places don't have the same, but we saw it ring really loud and really true. And we were like, okay, like our whole business is built on a connection with people. And the kind of person that connects in our world matters, and those kind of people exist here. And so we're really excited to just continue to build it here.
So maybe tell us a little bit more about those folks you're hiring. Who do you hire? What are those roles? And what are you looking for in a potential team member? You've given a few traits that they would need to be able to do the work, but maybe give us a little bit more about the roles and what you're looking for.
Absolutely. And I think we've touched upon it, both Dave and I. It's really having the right attitude. That's first and foremost. I've always said throughout my career, we could train and teach the skill. We could always do that, but we cannot train and teach having the right attitude. And working with people and building that relationships with your customer is first and foremost. Understanding that the customer has a problem and you are there to help. Great, that's where we want to be at. We live in a great age where there are so many free online resources or even webinars that are out there where we could point you in the right direction and you can learn the skill yourself. And that's where the second trait, I would say, is being self-driven to understand the skill. So first, again, attitude, right? We're here to help. Having the right attitude is first part. The second is having that drive to push yourself to the next level and where you want to be. There's many entry points into IT, and we want you to be happy as well too, but it's for you to drive where you want to go into the IT world, whether it's being an application developer or engineer, or being a hardware engineer, or even being a network engineer, or being a project manager within IT. Having that drive to control your destiny within IT is critical, because that's where you're best going to perform. That's where you're best going to be happy at. Other than that, there's really not much, I look for. Again, I go back to always saying that, it's the attitude that we cannot teach you. We can teach you and get you the right resources to learn the technology or the skill.
And the thing that I look for when I talk to folks is really a lot of what Neil said, and the way I describe it is two things. One, it's grit, right? So you will never, in our field, IT in general, I don't just say this just for our company, IT in general, you will never know everything that can be known, right? It is extremely wide, it's extremely complex. There's a gazillion different vendors for everything. You will never know it all. But you have to have the grit to push through your customer's problem, but also push yourself through the learning curve that's necessary. So we look for grit, right? And how that can be reflected is a lot of different ways, right? A four-year degree is clearly someone who is capable of seeing something through to the end, right? And that's just one example, right? So we look for things like, do you participate in activities where you have the opportunity to lead, right? Some type of an association or a membership or a group, that maybe even high school students participate in, or, things like athletics and things like, clubs. And it shows a character to want to go out and continue to learn and strive and push yourself. And that's just something we can't teach. And then the second way I talk about it is passion. You have to have a passion, obviously, for customers, which we've been talking about, a passion for helping people. But you also do have to have, and I think this is important when I talk to IT, students that are in the IT field, you have to have a level of passion for technology. Like, this is an all-consuming industry. So if it's not cool for you to try out the new phone or the new video game or the new laptop or whatever, like if you don't find interest in that, or something else, related to technology, like it has to at least perk your imagination and draw you to it at a personal level. Otherwise, you will get burnout. And I've seen hundreds of colleagues throughout the years that it just becomes too much. And because they don't have that like passion and drive around like, this is something I really enjoy, it's really easy to get burnout on it.
Absolutely. I just want to echo that. You need to like what you do, right? And everything around, what you're doing around technology, and there's many aspects of IT. It's not just, laptops and cell phones and servers. You have to like it. And to take the next point is, you have to communicate. You are always working in a team. Dave said it the best. It takes a lot of people. You're not going to know it all. It is literally impossible, but you do have to communicate, work with a partner, work with a team, and be able to partner with them no matter what the objective is.
Absolutely.
So if someone is just getting started in their IT career and they're going to apply for a job at Endpoint Utility Corp, what would their job title typically be? And what would be the expected responsibilities of that role? What would they be doing in that first job with you?
I'll start and you can add.
All right.
We really, we do in rare circumstances have to hire for specific expertise, right? So like, I'll give you an easy example. Our lead architect, his name just happens to be Daniel. We had a need for somebody who'd been there, done that, knew it. So Daniel has a degree in IT. He's worked in the IT organization for hospital systems. Like he's got the background, the experience, the education. That we prefer actually to be the exception. And we're a little bit different in that regard from a lot of our peer group. We would rather grow it ourselves, if you will. So what we look at in terms of folks that come in, they would generally come in to be a service representative. So they would actually be taking calls directly from customers that are calling in and saying, I have a problem. And then figuring out what is the problem and what is the solution. So the reason we like that is a few reasons. There is no better, and I will say this even in my own personal experience, and Neil can echo his, but I started out long ago in my career, I was doing, training classes on computers, and then I also did inside sales. That is a person-to-person touch all the time. Like that's the whole job. And I will tell you, there's no replacement for the experience of having a one-on-one interaction with whomever the customer is. Even if you end up going in a totally different direction where now you've moved on to doing just hardcore code development, having that initial experience of interacting with the end person who is consuming what it is you're doing, and that understanding of what you do and how it affects someone else is really paramount. So we like to hire folks with 2-year degrees, 2-year associate degrees. We also hire people with 4-year degrees. In a really specialized case, we could conceivably, we haven't done it yet, but we could conceivably take somebody right out of high school that might be a kind of a half level down, if you will, from our usual starting point. But 2- and 4-year IT degrees, you've got a great base of knowledge that we can help you build off of, and then give you the experience to bring that into the real world. Anything else?
No, I think you said it best. I mean, it's an entry point usually into the IT field begins with direct interaction to the customer. And I think I cannot even further stress Dave's point that that's when you learn the user experience and tend to get an understanding it. And also being a generalist at that point, right? So coming in at a help desk is a great way, no matter what level of education you have into a help desk, you kind of understand the basis of IT. And then you take that experience with you 20, 30 years later in your career, understanding the customer and what good customer service means. Because at the end of the day, IT doesn't exist just to exist. It exists to serve the customer, whether it's people in your own company as the customer or externally.
Absolutely.
So what does the career ladder look like then? So once somebody, gets their foot in the door, maybe has worked for some period of time as a support specialist, what are the mid-career level roles that they could move up into? And maybe what are senior level roles that they could aspire to down the road?
Sure. I'll take this one. So it always starts off with somewhere at the very beginning of your IT career as being some sort of entry-level help desk. And you start to get a feel for all the different aspects of IT, people, processes, and technology. And then you start to decide, where do I have more of a passion for, right? And then you start working towards that. Again, I go back to today's world of there's so many resources now to kind of help you learn the next skill. And you kind of push yourself into that area. So if I have a passion for delivering or getting something done, maybe being a project manager within IT is where you want to go. Or if you really like coding, right? You really like solving the software mystery, then you specialize in the code language that's out there, or the software that is out there, or maybe you become even more of a subject matter expert in that application, which brings you to the next level as being a technical lead or a functional lead or a subject matter expert. But somewhere along the line, you have to decide whether I want to be a manager, or if you want to focus more on the person and the work versus stay hands-on to the technology. So for me, having knowledge of the technology and understanding that, I think management is my next step. I changed my education from being technical, but always staying close to it, to having more of a management degree. I went for a management degree, and that was for me. And that's where people need to make the decision in their career is, am I a better people manager, or am I better at working within the technology? And then somewhere along the line, you kind of make that decision is, am I going to be a leader in the organization? Am I ready to take on that responsibility? Am I going to be an effective communicator of my objectives to people that are going to be under me? And you take it there. And for us, we went through that progression. And then after many years, I guess we both said, yeah, let's change this up and let's form our own company. So we're progressing and we're evolving. And I think that IT changes so quickly, technology changes quickly. The individual also has to evolve to where it best fits.
And I just add just really quick to that. I think sometimes it gets lost with the assumption that having a big team of people is what promotion means. And that isn't always the case. And it's especially not true in the IT field. Like, you can be a very senior person that does no management whatsoever.
Absolutely.
Right. You can be a senior level coder who works on the hardest problems that ever come up within the code base that have to be fixed, right? And you don't have to have anybody that reports to you. So I think I would just I always tell students, like, hey, like, don't think that like I have to be in management, that the management equals success.
Yeah.
Right. There's plenty of opportunities to go down paths in in sales and marketing and in technical development and architecture design, and none of those things have to involve tons and tons of people working for you. So.
And technology is changing, so you're ever learning and ever evolving to that. Senior level software developers now are exploring the capabilities of AI or Bitcoin. These are things that we are just hearing about and just trying to explore. And application architects, very senior level, not in a management position, who are developing new ways of using that technology. So Dave is absolutely right. There's plenty of room to be in technology and not have to manage people or be, the C-level, but yet be a very valuable person to the organization in terms of your innovative thinking to use the technology.
So let's say that there's a very motivated student out there that's, taking classes in IT. Maybe they're going to get their 2-year degree or their 4-year degree. Do you have advice for them on particular skills or experience that are very nice to have if you want to have lots of job options when you get out of school, or you want to get promoted quickly in your career?
Yeah, I think the kind of at least 3, maybe 4 buckets that I would put this in. First and foremost, this one often gets overlooked. And there's a certification called the A+ certification, and some people will watch this video and probably laugh that I just said that. But I will tell you, there's no replacement for understanding the physical side of how it works, right? So the A+ is all about hardware. Mm-hmm. Like, how does the laptop actually work physically? Right. And to understand like how the human interacts with the technology, whether it's a phone or a computer or a printer, it doesn't matter, right? That can't be really replaced or replicated any other way.
It's
right?
The foundation.
It really is.
And it's not just I should get an A+ certification because I want to be in IT. It's I want to get my A+ certification so I can understand the foundation of IT, but then you take that foundation and you apply it even to non-IT things, right? It's great that we work with, say, a project manager that understands how a computer works, so they could translate that to how to lead their project, right? Or that makes them a better user of the technology. So I think it definitely starts there. Going back to your question of what, sort of what stands out to me, communication, first and foremost. It's so important to be able to articulate your thoughts effectively, and also listening to others effectively. Communication is not just me talking to you, it's me talking and listening to you and understanding that I am listening not to respond, but to understand your perspective. That is, to me, very critical in every part of IT, in any sort of professional career. It's being able to talk through things. And I think Dave could, agree with me that there are going to be a lot of conflicting objectives and heated discussions and very passionate discussions that happen. But being able to talk and listen and work through it and come through some sort of alternative solution, agreement, that is where the value is in working in a group.
And back to the IT, then I guess the other buckets I would add to that would be understanding security in its general sense as it pertains to IT is irreplaceable. I would say just again, it's a concept that if you understand it, then if you're a coder, you write your software correctly so that it's secure. Mm-hmm. If you're an architect, like you design the directory correctly so that it's secure. So having that like base knowledge concepts of how security is done correctly, I would put that on the list. And then the last thing I would put on the list would be core concepts around networking. So understanding, because not only do we have to talk, but we get to talk in the physical world, right? So, but computers also have to talk. And so you have to understand, like, again, if we use, totally divergent disciplines within IT, I've seen a lot of bad code because people just like consume unbelievable amounts of resources because they took a bunch of shortcuts in writing their application because they didn't understand the concept of the fact that like this application has to talk to all kinds of different other things, right? And so understanding whether you're a coder or an architect or a technical person or even a security person, doesn't matter. Like understanding the core concepts of networking, I would put in that same bucket of like things that are really foundational to make you, future proof.
Yeah, computers have a language. You just need to understand how they are talking together with each other. And that's networking right there.
Absolutely.
Are there certifications or credentials that are particularly popular in the field right now, or that you might recommend that someone pursue as they're moving through their career?
So I think Dave mentioned a couple of that are suited for understanding the laptop with the 8+. If we look at the process side and how we troubleshoot, there is what we call ITIL standard, which is basically gives us the framework about the processes, how we operate IT. So that's a good one. There's always a foundations for that, and there's plenty of resources out there. And obviously, Googling it is a great thing. But you could understand each of the ITIL towers within it and their purpose. Also, I would say if you look through Microsoft's catalog or Microsoft Learn, there are so many different classes there that are free online, where it would lead you into a certification. Saying IT is very broad, and getting into it, you want to get the foundation. Then once you're in IT, then you want to funnel it down into some sort of specialty. And based on where you want to specialize in, or where is your passion, then you start taking classes towards that. You might be a desktop engineer, or you might be a network engineer. Network engineer, CCNA is a big one out there as a foundation for understanding how computers talk to each other, or how that happens, and the languages or the protocols. What would you think, David?
Yeah, I mean, the CCNA is a good example because that's a Cisco certified network administrator, right? And so what tends to happen very quickly is that within a discipline, it starts to go down the path of a vendor, right? And so it goes down the path of getting a certification from Microsoft, getting a certification from Google, right? And those are very good things, by the way. And so if you have a passion around, I really like, pick it, doesn't matter, Microsoft, right? As Neil indicated, there's at least 15 different certifications, probably more, just within the world of Microsoft. And then based on what you're passionate about, like you can get it on Office 365, you can get it on directory, you can get it on security. So anyway, it very quickly goes down the path of pick your favorite vendor. None of those are bad to have on your resume, right? Yeah. More is better, broader is better. So I wouldn't discourage anybody from going down those tracks.
And I would hate to try to leave out of the conversation, Apple or Mac. I mean, it's just as important today.
Yep, absolutely.
Is it necessary to learn coding, or helpful to learn coding? Are there particular languages people should think about?
I don't think it's necessary, but I do think understanding the fundamentals of coding makes a huge difference. And it's not so much as learning the language of a specific code. It's learning the logic of how is it coded and how to think like software is what's important.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, we're not a development company, right? So we're probably not as ideally suited to like comment specifically on like building code. But we obviously work with the outcome of people that write code, right? And so for us, I think, as Neil pointed out, like having that base understanding of how it works then allows us to be able to, when a customer calls us with a problem, it allows us to be able to translate that back, because oftentimes it requires us to go back to the person that created the product and say, hey, this is a problem. I need you to fix it. And it's not something we can necessarily fix. But understanding how it works and what happened allows us to be a better partner.
Yeah, and understanding the logic and how the logic works makes you a better troubleshooter. And I find in this business, half my day is troubleshooting, whether there's a technical problem or a management problem or a resource problem. It's understanding. I bring it back to if, then that, right? Which is really coding. So understanding that logic and the foundation of it helps you just in general. And again, IT, so many different facets, but I would probably say a lot of IT is really troubleshooting at the end of the day.
Yeah, great.
What do you love about your work?
Currently, working with this guy. To be honest with you, he's my friend first. We got together, we have conversations, but when we look at the big picture and the challenges that we have ahead of us, and there are some big challenges that we had. We collaborate. It's having a friend to talk to and being able to do something bigger than just myself. I could not have done what I have done here at Endpoint Utility, obviously without Dave, and that's vice versa. So the whole is bigger than the individual, which excites me, about the company. But again, I'm working with my friend here. First and foremost, that to me, that's what brings it together for me. What makes me excited.
I ditto that and just add to it that from an external perspective, being able to see the fruits immediately of what it is you do, because like I said so many times over, generally when somebody calls us, there's a problem. They don't call us if everything's working. And so to be able to resolve that, get them back to work, and to see the relief in their voice or eyes, if you're on video or whatever, that they're like, wow, man, I can get back to work. I can get back to doing what I love to do. Because what they love to do is whatever their business is doing. They don't love to spend 2 hours searching online for a solution to an IT problem. That's not fun.
Yeah.
So just that's what gets me excited, is seeing the outcome of helping somebody to be able to do what they most want to apply their time to. Yeah.
Any career is going to have its good points and bad points, upsides and down. What would you say are the pros and cons of working in IT generally?
So I will say this, IT does not sleep. Your laptop doesn't sleep, things happen at night. Be prepared to be woken up in the middle of the night. It happens. And as the world becomes more global, IT becomes more global, and the connections and the things that talk to each other and the software, everything becomes more global. You will work odd hours. It's just the nature of IT. I go back to IT doesn't sleep. Whether you're a project manager, whether you're a senior leader, whether you're a coder, they will call you. It does happen. 20 plus years in my IT career, I'm kind of used to it, and my wife got used to it as well too. That is definitely a con. Your day is always you just can't predict it when it's going to happen. I always think, and to give you the biggest pro for myself, is IT is a challenging field. You're challenged by working with all sorts of different personalities on the people side. You're challenged with an ever-evolving technology. We've all seen it change overnight. We always have to change change in IT, even based on the environment, meaning that what happens in the news, you're constantly reacting. But I think it goes back for me, the biggest pro is the people. I always enjoyed talking to the customer and trying to build that relationship. So I think that in IT, we always try to build the relationships, at least for me, because you can't get the job done because there's about 10 other people that need to be on board and have the same objective. So you're constantly building that relationship. And I'm right now in a great position where I get to work in a company that I already have a relationship with all the members. And it just keeps building from there.
I'd agree with that. I think it's been quite a career. I mean, to the point of like relationships, I met my wife because we both worked at Microsoft at the same office, right? I mean, I'm not saying that that's the way to do that, but you know what? I mean, it really is. And I've had the opportunity to sit and meet and understand and really work with, you know, some amazing like large companies and learn about their business and how their business operates that I never would have. No, I shouldn't say never, but I probably wouldn't have had that experience. And then, so that's been great, is to like learn about the people and to be able to meet them and understand how their business operates and how you can help it. And so I think it's definitely one of the pros, is that for better or for worse, like IT is now so woven into the fabric of how business operates. It is inescapable, right? You can't operate a business. Well, there's probably some you can. There are very few businesses you can operate without IT anymore. So that has been definitely a pro. And I would agree with the con. I mean, I spent lots of time. Fortunately, I don't have to as much anymore. COVID helped that a lot. I spent lots of hours, probably years of my life, on planes and hotels and things like that. And so that wasn't necessarily a pro, but you know what? It did give me the opportunity to meet with all of these people around the world. And so that you got to take the good and the bad on anything, right?
Yep.
So that's an interesting point. Maybe a follow-up question. How has the last few years of COVID changed the dynamics of the IT field? Are you just seeing a lot more remote opportunities generally to do your work?
I'll start. So it was a really interesting scenario in terms of the fact that like there was definitely this rush to assume we could make the world the same way but virtually, right? And just the amount of what is it called, Zoom fatigue, right? I mean, that's a real thing because everybody just rushed out, and those things that we used to be able to do for like 2 minutes, like when we would walk over to the next cube and have the 2-minute conversation, now all of a sudden became like a 30-minute like online meeting, right? And so it was just like online meeting after meeting after meeting. And I think that has definitely, and I think everybody would agree, has been a negative in this equation. And it's tough for me to step back and look at it and say, was it good or bad or otherwise, or maybe it just is that because of it, it actually like IT was already woven in business. And then with the advent of what occurred with the pandemic, I mean, it just drove it all the way in for all time, and then set concrete around it and then put the concrete underneath the mountain. I mean, it is like, there is no going back, if you will, in terms of the use of technology in order to run business now, because it was a necessity then. It was inescapable when we were all forced to work from home. And so there's definitely been some positives in terms of, you know, how it is that people have then grasped technology and created really creative ways of utilizing it. But I think there will be this rebalancing of the equation. We're not ever going back to the way we were before, where everybody was constantly on a plane. And I think we're all thankful for that fact, by the way, that there's better use of money and resources than that. But but I think that the equation will get rebalanced to something because people want to interact in person.
Absolutely. And I think it's constantly evolving what the user experience is when it comes to IT. We just have to adapt with it. And talking about change, not only changing technologies, but changing to environment. We went from being able to walk over to the next cube to instant messaging or texting or calling. There's many different channels of communication nowadays, but you have to centralize it and almost tailor it. And I think that's why IT has come forth within the past 3 years. It's really trying to tailor what the experience is for the user based on the user, not the technology. So it's been an exciting time for us because we based our model off of the user experience and the laptop and being remote no matter where you are. So it's definitely going to change again. What it changes to, how it changes, when it changes, we don't know. But that's why IT is exciting for me. It's you got to be dynamic. You got to start thinking ahead and anticipating, because changes don't happen overnight. But being able to keep the user running and up and working and being productive has to continue.
For sure.
You've given us a few hints already, but how would you describe a typical day working in IT?
Lots of email.
Is there one?
Yeah.
I think it's fun for those of us who can. Somebody once told me, and I use this term all the time now. If you're really good at time sharing your brain, it's great for that, because it's like you do this thing and for whatever 15 minutes, and then you jump over to that thing for an hour, and then you jump to this thing, and then you do lunch. It's just like jumping and bouncing all over the place. I think that the thing though that is really important, and I would say in founding a company, I had to refine my appreciation for it, because when you work at a big business, there's always the next thing that's available. The next fire to go fight is like always there. Like you don't even have to look that hard, right? It's just like there's the next thing and the next thing, and so you're bouncing and bouncing. And I think the thing that I had to relearn to appreciate was to be able to take something and work it through to a point of whatever its needed conclusion was at that point. And so now I am more prescriptive at taking more time to say, I have to get this marketing plan done, right? I have to get this whatever loan application for the bank done. So instead of bouncing and bouncing, it's more about structuring your day to say, okay, these are the 4 whatever rocks that I want to move today, and to make sure that they actually get moved.
Yeah. And being realistic about those rocks. We all would like to move 10 rocks each day, but in actuality, we can only move 4. And again, my day is lots of email, but I'm here to listen to the customer and troubleshoot their problem. So for me, it's problem after problem after problem after problem, which is fine. We get it, but we do carve out time to be proactive and try to anticipate what that problem is before it happens, and try to be proactive. So that's a change in my my thinking here is I now force myself to think about what's next, what's going to happen next, and how to prevent it.
And just last thought on that, and we've mentioned it several times already, but is a typical day in IT is constant communication. Like it's the text message, it's the email, it's the virtual meeting, it's the sitting down and writing the document, it's whatever it is, right? It's just constant communication. And I think that's a good thing, right? For those people, like back to the thing, like if you're not passionate about it, you're constantly having to communicate about it. That's gonna be a problem at some point. But if you like to talk about it, you will have all day at work to talk about it in various different formats. So it's just constant communication.
Absolutely. And Dave said it, there's so many different channels of communication. You got to pick the right one for the right message.
Absolutely. Absolutely true.
Good advice. Well, we're down to our last couple of minutes, so maybe I'll give you each a minute. Is there anything that we have not yet talked about that you think might be helpful to bring up for our audience that's interested in IT?
Yeah, I think one of the things we didn't get a chance to touch on, but I wanted to make sure and mention it is don't overlook, and it doesn't matter what form it comes through, but don't overlook math, honestly, as a like really foundational important thing. And it's for the sake of like being able to understand logic patterns, and being able to work through problems to a firm outcome, right? Which is what math is, right? There's always an answer. And so that being able to follow concepts through logically, whether it's coding and developing an application, whether it's resolving a customer's problem, whether it's developing a new physical product, like it doesn't matter, right? Everything has this a logic pattern that really has to be followed. And so, even though my degree was in finance, I've never like directly been a finance manager, but to understand the logical concepts of numbers has been hugely positive and impactful in my own personal career. So you can get that through a variety of different means. You can be a physics major, you can be you can be a computer science major, you can do finance, accounting, it doesn't matter, right? But to understand how numbers work and how logic patterns are established, I think that is really important. I really stress that with folks that are in school that I talk to.
And stay positive. For me, the message is stay positive. You're capable of doing it. Believe in yourself. You are going to be challenged in the IT field, and you're going to be challenged all through life. Staying positive helps you come up with a better solution. It helps you work better with people, helps you communicate. There is going to be a lot of difficult times. We talked about not sleeping. Being woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning with your phone because someone has a problem that you need to solve you're not going to be in the best of mood. But understanding there's a reason you're here to help does help the situation. Attitude. I've always said, we can't train the attitude or do anything about it, but we could teach you the skill. But just having the right attitude when you walk in the door every day, and liking it or loving it is important.
Well, David and Neil, thank you so much for sharing your wealth of knowledge today. I think this is going to be so helpful to folks that are interested in this career field, who maybe want to get into IT to really understand what the field is about and how they can succeed. So thank you again for your time.
Our pleasure.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. We like to talk about it.
In case you couldn't tell.
Yeah.
Makes you the perfect interview subject. Well, thank you again.
Absolutely. Thank you, Christina.